I'm from upstate New York. This happened about 8 years ago, when I was in my early 20s, right after a breakup that had completely thrown me off balance. I was living with my grandmother at the time, helping her around the house. She's one of those deeply religious women who never misses Sunday service, and I'd started going with her just to keep her company, maybe to find a little purpose too. That's where I met her. Her name was Lily. I'd never seen her before, and in a small community like ours, that was weird. She looked out of place. Long black hair, pale skin, and this distant, almost hollow smile. After the service, I introduced myself. She told me she'd just moved nearby, helping take care of her sick mother. Her voice was calm, polite, but there was something in her eyes I couldn't quite explain. We started talking more after that, mostly outside church. She didn't have social media, said she didn't like being seen. I laughed it off, thinking she was just shy. One day, I offered to drive her home after evening mass. She hesitated, then said yes. Her house was on a narrow dirt road behind the old chapel, a place that hadn't been used in years. The drive there felt longer than it should have been. Fog had rolled in thick, and by the time we reached her driveway, my headlights barely cut through it. She turned to me and said softly, "Thank you for bringing me back." No one ever does. I smiled awkwardly, not really sure what that meant. But before I could ask, she stepped out and disappeared into the fog. The next Sunday, she wasn't there. I asked a few people from the congregation if they knew her, but nobody did. Even the priest said he didn't recall anyone by that name. I thought maybe I'd imagined her, until a few days later when I drove down Chapel Road again. I slowed near the old chapel, and that's when I saw it. A small wooden cross in the grass near the tree line. On it was carved, Lily Morgan, 1989 to 2013. The air went cold inside my car. When I told my grandmother about it later, she froze. She said Lily had died in a car crash right outside that chapel, almost 10 years before. I used to drive long hauls across the Southwest, mostly Arizona, Nevada, and New Mexico. This story happened about 5 years ago, somewhere between Kingman and Tonopah. It was late summer, and I was driving through one of those empty desert stretches that seemed to last forever. No towns for miles, no gas stations, just sand, rock, and the occasional power line humming in the heat. I was used to it, but that night felt different from the start. The sky was darker than usual. No moon, no stars. Just this endless black dome hanging over me. Around 11 p.m., I noticed lightning in the distance. Not the normal kind, though. It flashed horizontally, like it was crawling along the horizon instead of striking down. I figured a storm was rolling in, so I slowed down a bit. Then the rain started hard. My windshield wipers barely worked, so I pulled over onto the shoulder, figuring I'd wait it out. That's when I noticed something strange in the mirror. A light like a flashlight beam, way off in the desert. It was flickering erratically, moving side to side. Then another one appeared, and another. At first, I thought maybe it was a group of hikers or campers, but it was close to midnight, and we were miles from anything resembling civilization. I shut off my headlights to see better, and my heart dropped. The beams were moving toward me, slow but steady, weaving through the darkness like they knew exactly where I was parked. I don't scare easily, but something about it felt wrong. My gut started screaming, "Leave now." When the rain lightened a little, I turned the ignition. Nothing. The truck wouldn't start. I tried again. Dead. That's when I realized the lights had stopped moving. There were 3 of them, lined up about 50 yards away. And even through the rain, I could tell they weren't flashlights anymore. They were eyes. Bright, white, unblinking eyes floating at human height. I froze. Then one of them blinked out and reappeared closer. I swear to God, it was like they were teleporting forward. I grabbed my radio, but it only spat static. I remember whispering, "Please start, please." And finally, the engine roared back to life. I floored it. Didn't look back once. When I finally reached a truck stop 2 hours later, I told another driver what happened. He stared at me quietly for a few seconds, then said, "Yeah, you passed through Devil's Basin. They see lights there all the time. People call them watchers." He smiled a little and added, "Just be glad they let you leave." I don't really talk about this anymore, mostly because no one ever believes me. But sometimes, when I'm driving long stretches alone at night, I still see that town in my head, the one that shouldn't exist. This happened 3 years ago. My sister and I were driving from Georgia to Pennsylvania after visiting some friends. It was supposed to be fun, snacks, playlists, bad singing, one of those simple road trips you look back on later. But around 3 a.m., somewhere along I-81, we both got tired. I remember seeing a sign for a small town called Milford Junction, claiming to have food and gas just 5 miles off the exit. So we took it. The first thing that struck me was how quiet it was. Not late-night small town quiet. It was dead. Every building looked frozen in time. Faded gas prices, broken windows, paper signs curling inside shop doors. But the lights were on, which was confusing. We pulled into a gas station. The neon sign flickered open, though not a single car was there. Inside, it smelled like dust and cleaning chemicals. A woman at the counter greeted us with a faint smile, and for some reason, her voice echoed, like the room was bigger than it should have been. I grabbed a bottle of water and asked if there was somewhere to eat. She said, "Diner's still open, down by the church. You can't miss it." I swear, she never blinked once. We drove 2 blocks down, found the diner, and parked right out front. There were people inside. At least, they looked like people. But something was off. They were sitting perfectly still, not talking, not eating, just sitting there. All of them facing the same direction, toward the door. My sister whispered that maybe it was some late-night meeting or small-town ritual. We both laughed nervously, trying to make light of it, but when we opened the diner door, every single head turned toward us at the exact same time. No hesitation, no delay, like a mirror reflection. I froze. My sister said softly, "Let's go." As we turned to leave, one of them, an older man in a plaid shirt, stood up and said, "You're early." We didn't wait to find out what that meant. We ran to the car, slammed the doors, and took off. I kept checking the rear view mirror, expecting someone to follow. But the weirdest part? When we finally got back to the highway, the GPS didn't recognize Milford Junction at all. Not the gas station, not the diner, nothing. It just showed a blank stretch of forest. A week later, I tried searching online. No records, no listings, no trace of any town with that name anywhere in the state. And every time I think about it, I keep wondering, if that town didn't exist, who were those people waiting for us?